This is my History of Immigration project on the evolving Irishman. I'm Eilis Regan.
But because I am a Catholic, and no Catholic has ever been elected president, the real issues in this campaign have been obscured, perhaps deliberately, in some quarters less responsible than this. So it is apparently necessary for me to state once again, not what kind of church I believe in, for that should be important only to me, but what kind of America I believe in.
That was JFK's speech on his religion. As the Democratic presidential nominee, he addressed the Greater Houston Ministerial Association, a group of Protestant ministers, on the 12th of September, 1960. Kennedy's Catholicism shocked Protestant America, so much so that he had to defend it. JFK then went on to become a very popular 35th President of the United States. His grandparents, Patrick Kennedy and Bridget Murphy, had emigrated from Ireland. So then, how did the Irish go from being targets of Boss Tweed's demeaning cartoons, wherein they were depicted as apes sitting atop barrels of beer, and no Irish need apply signs, to the presidency? Breege Ward immigrated to the U.S. on April 7, 1955. Her husband, Brendan Ward, came in August of that year. When John F. Kennedy died, Brendan went down to Washington, D.C. to pay his respects.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
I know that we were very happy to have Kennedy the president, and when he died, I couldn't go to Washington, but Brendan got on the plane and went to Washington to see him laid out in Washington, because we were that fond of him, really. He was a nice, ordinary man, you know, who seems to be warm-hearted, carefree kind of man.
Breege Ward left Foxford, County Mayo, Ireland in 1955. Herself and fine musician Brendan Ward resided in New York City.
But I was disappointed in the States because it wasn't what we read in the magazines.
Yeah.
And of course we were reading or being shown what the wealthy people had,
Yeah.
not what the couple I came to, well, it was sister and brother, the Clarks. They were up in Dyckman Street, up in New York, and they lived on about the 8th floor, I think.
A walk-up.
The walk-up. And when I was going up, I said, oh my God, are they living on the roof? I wasn't too happy.
Her first job was at Caltech.
The girls in the office were doing nothing. They'd be sitting back talking for ages. And I was always finding something to do. They used to say to me, slow it down, you won't make us look bad.
Breege left the job when she got pregnant.
And they'd close the file on you then. But they drew a report. And on the file it said would rehire. Of course I never went back there to work.
And the Irish were good workers. People hired the Irish people. Breege remembers her time working at Ward Travel Agency, a company she and her husband started in New York.
I had to make up the reports, and it had to be accurate. And people would be going to the beach on a Sunday or a Saturday, and I'd be sitting outside the garden or the backyard, making up these reports and wishing I was at the beach. But Brendan wouldn't be able to go anyway because he was resting to go to bed, to go to work that night.
Playing music? Yeah.
City Centre was 3 nights a week, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We worked hard, but there were good times. It wasn't easy to be out the dances on Saturday. It didn't end until 1 o'clock, was it?
2.
2. By the time you got out of the place, it was another hour.
Bridget McGraw was born in Limerick, County Kerry, Ireland, in 1937. She came to Rochester, New York on November 13th, 1956. She remembers getting her second job.
And he said, matter of fact, he said, we have nothing at all to give you. I said, okay. So I went home, but Bill Wood was married to a girl from Belfast. And she said, you've got to give her a job, give her something. So he called a friend of mine that worked there to know if he had my number. He called me 9 o'clock that night and said, come in for an interview. And I thought, you said you didn't have any job. Well, we will.
She chats about the Irish.
They were delighted to get the opportunity to make money and to be able to work. So they were very, very faithful about showing up for work. And
Of course, at that time, Kodak was very good to its employees,
yeah, and
too.
did not want handouts. They were very proud of being able to support themselves and work for what they wanted.
But that wasn't always the case. Breach chats about previous Irish immigrants.
For such a fine country, they hadn't improved. The Irish must have stayed in a circle. At that time, it was kind of stagnant. They weren't moving, even though they were all nice people. They would have come from Ireland at a worse time than we did, a poorer time. Might be lovely people and bright people, but there wouldn't be as much on the ball as, see, we weren't allowed to come for years, and then they opened the borders again in the 50s, the early 50s, and that's when there was a big surge of Irish people moving into the States. And even other nationalities seem to like the Irish.
Yeah.
That the time of them being stereotyped had passed.
It wasn't always "kiss me, I'm Irish." In 1830, Charles G. Finney visited Rochester to revitalize its Presbyterian population. He believed that the Irish Catholics were evil and illogical. The anti-Catholic and closely intertwined temperance movement, though, did not keep the Irish from infiltrating Rochester. By 1834, there were 800 Irish-born men in Rochester. By 1828, the ancient order of the Hibernians had already been established. Still, a cholera epidemic that enveloped Rochester in the 1830s was blamed on the Irish. Newspapers called the breaking of the Catholic St. Patrick's Cathedral in 1830 by vandals an act of anti-popery. Discrimination is nothing new. Vince Perillo, a professor of sociology at William Patterson University, wrote in his book, Diversity in America, that the American ambassador to England, Rufus King, wrote in 1797 to Secretary of State Timothy Pickering that the Irish immigrants would disfigure the United States, true national character. Nevertheless, the Irish persisted. Ireland's transplanted William Gleason, Henry O'Reilly, James Buchanan, and Patrick Kearney saw immense success in Rochester.
Gears Drive. They propel. They control. Gears keep the world in motion. At Gleason, we're constantly in motion too, helping our customers keep pace with changing market demands and fueling innovations that drive their ongoing success. As the total gear solutions provider, Gleason delivers the products, processes, and services that companies around the world depend on.
William Gleason immigrated to Rochester from Ireland. He brought with him what Rochester's February 26, 1899 Democrat and Chronicle newspaper called the genius, the courage, the wit that have made the Irish abroad so successful. As in 1847, Gleason invented the first Bevelvere planer machine. In 1865, he founded what would become the internationally known Gleason Corporation. Hearing this, Irishman John O'Rourke's service in the Civil War might be quite significant. O'Rourke led the 140th Regiment to success at the Battle of Little Round Top. Perhaps this war hero buried Rochester's distaste of the Irish Catholics. Or perhaps it was that between 1891 and 1900, 614,000 Irish immigrated into the U.S. Or perhaps there were other people to dislike even more than the Irish. Breege Ward suggests the Italians.
Well, for one thing, the ones who were coming were more alert and knew more than those who had come before. You know, the ones who had come before were very limited in what they could do.
When I came to New York, I didn't know a soul in
No.
New York, not one single person.
No.
And 6 months later, I'd be walking down Fifth Avenue, and did we wave and see me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was always someone coming. Or if you went into an office, there'd surely be someone you'd know.
Yeah.
See, the people who left before us were badly off. It was a bad time in Ireland. They just had got over the trouble with the North, and it was a hard time. Our time was easier.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't in any war. There's no war. There were wars, but Ireland wasn't involved. And things had quietened down in the north, so it was a peaceful time.
Yeah, well, the Irish were pretty highly thought of at that time, though.
Yeah, and education was better in Ireland. A lot of these people only came straight from maybe not even finishing grammar school. They either went to England, or if they were lucky and had somebody in the States who would claim them in. We used to say it was claim them in. And when the Irish, the signs came down about them, the next group were the Italians.
Yeah.
And the Italians were treated badly then. They were all mafia, or kind of labelled as mafia. Whereas they weren't. Then the Irish started to marry the Italians, or if you like, the Italians started to marry the Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And it became that there were an awful lot of Irish-Italian weddings.
And then St. Patrick's Day parades. According to Bridget McGraw,
people in Rochester that will tell you, I'm Irish, and very proud of being Irish.
on the Americanized St. Paddy's Day, everybody's Irish, even if they're not. It's a sea of green and brimming with alcohol. Rochester puts on a big parade. The Ancient Order of Hibernians started the parade back in 1952. Breed shares her opinion on St. Patrick's Day.
You know, like they used to call the Irish years ago the Paddies. That's where that comes from. And it's kind of a derogatory thing, though they don't mean it that way. But it sounds like that. that when they came to America, going to the bars and drinking. People didn't drink years ago like that in Ireland. The new generation did start drinking and going out to the pubs, which was an awful mistake. It was the cheap way of getting together on the weekend with their own people. And some of them could take a drink, but some couldn't. And it's the ones who couldn't that show up all the time because they act stupid and they're seen as being stupid. I would say that's why. There's other ways. There's a lot of talent in Ireland, a lot of good writers, a lot of poets. But, you know, I don't know why they did it. And a lot of the Irish people now even will refer to it. Drives Brendan crazy when he hears them saying bad these days. And the Irish people are showing them how much they can get on in this country.
Yeah. Apparently, some Americans have the wrong idea. Rochester's Democrat and Chronicle's March 17, 1962 issue reported that Maureen O'Hara, born in Ireland, refused to sing any popular so-called Irish songs. She said, "I don't hear them over in Ireland. The Irish songs that are generally sung in America aren't Irish. I don't even know the words to When Irish Eyes Are Smiling." She had recently recorded an album of real Irish songs and said then that they should not all be sung in a bar. It's the ongoing and prior assumptions and stereotypes that are the tiny little annoyances. Bridget recalls,
One of the things that bothered me, and it was only one or two people, they would come up and they'd stand there and they'd have you ever seen this banana? And I said, no, I didn't lose one, right? No, I mean, did you ever see a banana? Did you ever wear lipstick? Did you ever wear high heels before you came here? Did you ever see oranges? And finally I said to one girl, I said, where do you think I came from, Mars? I mean, yes, we had bananas, oranges, apples, high heels, lipstick, we had the whole thing.
To be Irish does not mean to be from Mars. Stereotypes are the residue of a deadened Irish discrimination in America. Discrimination is not universal in its implementation. What the Irish in Rochester experienced was not that of New York City's Irish in the 1900s, nor is discrimination stagnant. The nativist finger has perpetually pointed at newcomers. The newcomer today is Mexico. President Trump falsely defines what it means to be Mexican. It means to be a drug dealer, criminal, or a rapist. His crowds cheer. They want him to build the wall. They make wide, inaccurate generalizations.
Build that wall, 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 build that wall.